What's up everyone, Theo here with a quick beginner's guide to healing Neltharion's Lair as a Resto Druid. This is not designed to be the most in-depth overview for those pushing high keys, but rather an attempt to give those new to Resto Druid some tips and tricks on how to handle the dungeon as a beginner, or simply as someone looking to survive their weekly keys. Be sure to like the video if you find it helpful, and subscribe if you want some more casual healing content, and let's get started. The first set of trash packs aren't too dangerous, and as such, your tank will probably do some pretty big pulls. The only mob that can get a little tricky is the Tar Spitter Lurkers. These will burrow towards a random target and then start casting Viscid Bile. This can be pretty deadly, but we can help stop it with Incapacitating Roar. Rockmora is a pretty straightforward fight to heal. Just don't stand in front of the boss and make sure the group is topped off before he casts Shatter. Make sure your wild growth cast ends right as Shatter hits, and be ready to send your cooldowns during this part. Luckily, our cooldowns are on a low enough timer that you should have something up for almost every Shatter. The second set of trash packs have some pretty annoying mobs. The Rockbound Pelters do not have an aggro table and will target random players. This means that the damage from these mobs is pretty unpredictable. You want to do your best to heal any of the damage coming from these pelters. This is because you will also have Mightstone Breakers casting Avalanche. This can be very deadly for anyone who isn't at full health, and it's pretty hard to dodge unless you start moving immediately. Make sure you aren't stacked on your party, because getting hit by multiple of these will kill you. The only other dangerous mob is the Vile Shard Hulks. Their frontal is pretty brutal, but as long as your tank isn't trolling you, it should only hit the tank. Just be ready to use Cenarian Ward or Ironbark on your tank here if he needs it. Ularog Crag Shaper is another straightforward boss fight. There really isn't much damage happening, especially if your group kills the idols that spawn quickly. Just make sure to dodge the Strike of the Mountain and heal anyone that doesn't dodge it. Though on tyrannical weeks, they probably will get one shot if they fail this. The third trash packs have a lot of repeat mobs. There are a return of the Tar Spitter Lurkers, as well as new smaller grubs that cast Metamorphosis. These can be very annoying if their Metamorphosis goes off, so make sure that you interrupt these with your Incapacitating Roar. Some groups will also pull the alligators that are off to the side. If your group does this, be ready for some very heavy tank damage. You can also help your tank kite by using Ursul's Vortex on these mobs. Neuraxis is probably the most healing intensive fight in this dungeon. There is a pretty consistent amount of rot damage, so make sure you have your hots rolling on your party pretty consistently. Also, make sure to dispel the poison that comes out immediately. I'll usually dispel one of my weaker DPS and then use Bark Skin on myself when this comes out. The biggest mistake you can make on this fight is using your cooldowns right before she casts Spike Tongue. There isn't going to be much damage going out during this part, so make sure you use your cooldowns well before this so you don't waste any of their value. In the final sets of trash, we will get a new mob, the Emberhusk Dominators, that will do a lot of tank damage and cast a frontal. While the damage they put out is pretty heavy, they also enrage. This is very annoying for other healers and can be very deadly on fortified weeks. Luckily, as long as you soothe it off immediately, you will be in a pretty good shape to handle this. Dargrul the Underking will either be a very smooth or very obnoxious fight depending on your group. Ideally, your group will stay stacked near the boss so that when the ad spawns, it can be easily stunned by the pillars that spawn under players. However, if any of your ranged DPS are hanging out in Narnia, then you might need to heal a lot as you kite the ad to the pillar. This sort of mistake is definitely what you want to save your cooldowns for. Besides that, as long as everyone avoids Magma Wave and doesn't get hit by the boss's frontal, you should be in good shape. Remember that hiding behind the pillar while protecting you from the boss's Magma Wave doesn't break your own line of sight. If there isn't any damage coming in, then feel free to DPS at this part. And that's about it for Neltharion's Lair. This isn't a complete guide, but shows you some tips to get by the dungeon's most tricky parts. Like the video if you found it helpful, and be sure to subscribe for some more casual healing content, and until next time, happy healing.